So as we saw, knowledge is a kind of belief. It's the belief that is successful, that actually arrives at truth and is intimately tied to truth, so that if something weren't true, you wouldn't believe it. And if it is true, then you would believe it. But what is that tie? It's the why question. In other words, when someone claims to know something, you're entitled to ask them on what basis do they know it. You're entitled to ask them, why do you believe that? Unless they can answer the why question correctly, then they don't know it. So I claim the earth is round, and you ask me why I believe the earth is round. And let's say I tell you I believe the earth is round because I one day had a teacup and I placed some tea leaves in the teacup. And I said to myself, if half the tea leaves sink to the bottom of the water in the cup, then the earth is round. If more than half don't, then the earth is not round. Then you are entitled to say, although your belief is true, you don't know it. And so everything rests on this why question. I believe A because of the evidence. That's what we're saying is the crux or the basis for knowledge. But now the word because in English is ambiguous, Lewis says. It's ambiguous between two senses, what he calls cause-effect because versus ground consequent because. And he gives two very good examples, so I'll repeat them here. He says, look, let's say I say, Grandpa is sick because he ate the food with E. coli in it. That is cause-effect because. Here, we're explaining a fact, the fact that Grandpa is sick by the cause of that fact, namely that he ate food with bacteria in it. So that's different than this because. Let's say I say, Grandpa is sick because he didn't get up this morning, and if he were healthy, he gets up really early in the morning. He got up late, therefore he must be sick. There, I'm not telling you that his not getting out of bed or his getting up late caused him to be sick. I'm telling you how I know that he's sick, what the evidence is. So when I believe that Grandpa is sick because of the evidence, what am I saying? I'm not saying the evidence causes Grandpa to be sick. I'm saying that the evidence logically is the ground that leads to the consequence that he must be sick. And so this is ground consequent because just means that A is true because it is logically implied by the evidence. So that's different than the evidence causes my belief. So in order for me to have knowledge, then I have to believe A because of the evidence, right? I have to believe that Grandpa is sick because the evidence leads to it. And therefore, I have to say that my beliefs come from the fact that the evidence logically implies my belief. If it's not like that, if it's merely that some previous psychological state caused my present psychological belief, then that's not knowledge. I'll give you an example. Let us say that somehow I am put to sleep, I'm kidnapped and put to sleep by an evil scientist. And he gives me a pair of glasses that produce images that I then believe are what I'm seeing in the outside world. But really, these glasses are a virtual reality thing that are produced remotely by the scientist who controls the glasses and my brain. And so I walk into this room and I see the video camera and I see the various things that I see. But I don't see them because they're there. I see them because the scientist is producing exactly identical images in my glasses and in my brain through totally separate processes that have nothing to do with the existence of anything in this room. Then you would say, I believe that the video camera is in front of me and that I am talking to the video camera, not because the video camera is actually there, it has no relation to that, but because my beliefs, my visual beliefs, are being caused by some outside effect. What's true has nothing to do with my belief. Instead, I'm merely caused to believe it by a non-rational process. Then, even though my belief that a video camera is in front of me is true, you would still have to say that I don't know it, because I don't know it for the right reasons. I don't know it because the evidence leads to my conclusion. All of my evidence doesn't lead to my conclusion. Those same images could be there even if there was no video camera in the room. So thus we have to distinguish when we talk about knowledge between cause-effect because versus ground-consequent because. In order for my belief to qualify as knowledge, I have to believe it because the evidence logically and rationally is the ground for my consequent belief. But let's say naturalism is true. Then what this means is that all reason is a latecomer on the scene in the history of nature. First, you have the Big Bang, supposedly. The Big Bang is just a big explosion. It is not a rational process. It isn't designed. And then from the Big Bang, star detritus slowly coagulates into stars, planets. One of them happens to be our sun. Third planet from the sun is the Earth. Life starts to evolve on this planet somehow, not through design, but through some accidental process of random mutation and natural selection. And slowly but surely, brains evolve. And my beliefs are simply the effects of the neural, physical, chemical, biological processes in my brain. So that you could say that my belief that the video camera is before me is a product of the stimulation of my environment and a previous neurochemical process causing another neurochemical process. And all of this can be explained without bringing one iota of the evidence leads to the conclusion. All of this can be explained simply in the same manner as the evil scientist. It is, my belief is the final effect in a long chain of non-rational cause and effect because. But there's no necessary correlation between my belief being caused and my belief being the rational consequence of that evidence. And so it follows that my beliefs, because they result from non-rational processes that have nothing to do with reason itself, no necessary correlation whatsoever, it follows that my beliefs are not grounded in the cause-effect because. I believe that the Earth is round, not because the evidence leads to that conclusion. I believe that the Earth is round ultimately because the Big Bang went off, because the chemical processes in my brain caused subsequent chemical processes. And since these have nothing at all necessarily to do with reason, then it follows that my beliefs are not grounded in reason, but in purely physical, non-rational processes. Now, in order for me to say, okay, nonetheless, they could be reliable beliefs, I could have rationally well-grounded beliefs, I would have to establish some correlation, wouldn't I? I might have to say, well, when I say A causes B, what I really mean is the same thing as A implies B. But that's not true. Let's say that you got fired from your job. And as a result, you are depressed and you think you're worthless and a failure. So you could say that your getting fired from your job caused the belief that you are a failure. But does that follow that therefore your being fired implies that you are a failure? Obviously not. Plenty of well-qualified people have gotten fired from their job simply because of irrational or immoral or unjust reasons. So yes, A causes B in this case. Your belief that you were fired causes your belief that you are worthless and a failure. But it certainly is not the case that your belief that you were fired implies logically that therefore you're a failure. So the two aren't correlated at all. Take the opposite end of the extreme. If they were correlated, that means that because causes, the minute the cause exists, the effect exists, it follows that whenever you believe something, the minute that belief exists, then all the logical consequences of that belief should exist. So the minute the baby, the young child, 5-year-old maybe, believes that they see a triangle, then since it follows that their belief is that it is a triangle, then they should also believe that the interior angles equal 180 degrees, since that's a logical consequence of that. But they don't. We don't believe all the logical consequences of what we believe. We don't even bring them up. And so there is no necessary correlation between the evidence, my belief in the evidence, therefore I believe the conclusion. There's no correlation between that and the evidence somehow causes my belief. It could, but not because it's the logical ground, but simply because of some physical or psychological separate cause and effect chain that has nothing to do with the rationality of that belief. And so since naturalism must claim that reason comes from non-reason, but non-reason doesn't necessarily lead to reason, therefore it follows that since all my beliefs can be explained as a result of cause and effect because, then they are not because, even if I think they are, because of ground consequent because. Therefore, if naturalism is true, then none of my beliefs are because of the evidence. And therefore, if it's not because of the evidence, then it's not knowledge, is it? Even if they're all true. And so, if naturalism is true, then I do not believe things because of I have good reasons for them. I simply believe them because I was caused to believe them.